So after months, let's say almost a year of waiting, and also a couple of delays along the way, the first free DLC of Broken Arrow is finally here. Everyone, welcome the Baltic Battalion. I hope you guys you guys have definitely waited long enough to deserve this patch, because there is a lot of new content and also some changes that I think the devs didn't really state. We don't really know about them at the moment, but they're there, and I think they're also good changes. Not a lot, because we still have the PT on the horizon. But overall, guys, this video is going to be about a quick briefing about like what the DLC is about, whether this game is worth getting at 15% off. Well, maybe you're not interested because you already have the game. Oh, and also the last one is like about the decks. Like, you know, I have been playing the DLC for like the past couple weeks because well, I've been testing it out, and I've came up with a deck for each specialization that can be paired with Baltic Battalion. On the live patch, I've also I think, you know, for a guy that's played a lot of Broken Arrow and you know places decently on the leaderboard, I think you can take my word for it, and also my deck recommendations. So yeah, guys, buckle up and let's get down to it. So to quickly summarize the what is going on in this DLC, let's start with the balance patches, shall we? Turns out there was more than just a couple improvements and changes and balance changes done to the game. I guess I'll give you a quick rundown since there are way too many to start with. First of all, I think it's the most important ones is the reduction of the game size for about 40%. And also some decreased RAM and VRAM consumption. So for people with weaker laptops or computers, this is definitely a plus. Me included as well. Helicopters fly better now. And then now also when you're loading into the match, you get a bit extra time, 5 more seconds before you have to decide what deck you're going to be playing. And also on top of that, I think some other stuff like obviously visuals, some other things. And then at the end of the day, there's also we can't forget about the balance changes. So the balance, I think the biggest one is obviously the dam, because this has always been a very imbalanced map. They've changed the side with a bunch of forests and mountains, kind of changed it so that it now has roads that can easily you can easily transport to the other side of the hill, less forests, and also some of the like, since they dug a couple holes in that place, and you now have better line of sight to put SAMs inside, which is also nice. Along with that, we also have the new emergency airdrop feature, which, as we mentioned previously, in case that you ever get ran down by a couple interceptors while you're trying to do a VDV airdrop onto like the random landing zone, you can click on the units inside or just double tap the airdrop button to instantly drop whatever you have inside the cargo plane and ensure that the cargo inside is safe while the air transport. Good luck to him at least. Another pretty big one, I suppose, is that bigger squads take more damage and smaller squads take less damage, I guess. This is kind of like some kind of durability patch, and we hope that this can kind of reduce the amount of, or like discourage people from spamming Marines all the time and use some smaller squads to actually make this a bit more engaging of some sort. And then there are a couple more changes like anti-overkill tweaked, so they also always fire another missile just to override, to make sure that the S-300 doesn't just fire a missile and launch it to outer space randomly all the time. So that's also nice. And I think a couple more changes, for example, like RD smoke increase. This might be kind of cancer, 30 more seconds. And then also the howitzers with the caliber of 152 and above are now increased to have 4 to 5 seconds extra aim time. This is probably to prevent counter artillery fire from these using these howitzers to snipe the let's say the SAM sites or other MLRS artillery to kill them even before they can move. so I guess that's a good change. And also, along with MLR's aim time to increased for about 5 to 6 seconds, that also makes sense since they've increased the howitzer aim time. And as a result, we've also had finally the infantry HMG buff. So they now deal 50% more DPS, so that's pretty nice. A bit of a buff to tank accuracy, and also this one, which I think is the last big nerf, I guess, to precision guided munitions. Now you have to be at high altitude to start aiming. You cannot be at low altitude and then you start a precision guided bomb run, and then the munition immediately starts to aim. No, you can't do that. You have to climb back to high altitude, so you get spotted way easier, I think, and you gives your opponent way more reaction time if they see a bomber like this at high altitude. So all these seem like changes that are, you know, in the right direction. I think most of them. Maybe already smoke. We'll see about that. Infantry durability patch, less spamming, less marine spam. That's nice. And also the this is kind of funny. Thralls can now be force fired. I guess this was a bug instead of a like balance thing. I think that's it for now for the patch. I probably missed a couple things that are going to be mentioned in the dev notes or something, because obviously I'm a lousy person. But let's get down to business and talk about the actual like things you're actually here for. For example, the decks. And someone's asked me for like, Corn, can you give us a tier list, you know, update on the Baltic Battalion? Yeah, I could do that. I just need to pull that out later. But let's start by talking about all the decks here. And I know this is gonna take a while, but bear with me. Let's start with. Should we start with Airborne? Yeah, let's start with Airborne. Why not? This deck, I think a lot of things have changed. A lot of things have remained the same as well. But the biggest thing when you compare this deck to like Airborne Marines, because they also have tanks, is that the infantry aren't as beefy, but your support tab is really really nice. Obviously the helicopter tab and the air tab is not that great, but yeah, the biggest difference between Airborne Marines and Airborne Baltic is that the IMVs are something that really stands out between like is something that helps the specialization be capable of fighting both on-road and off-road against Russian IMVs or that kind of sorts. They also have the capabilities of using the spike LRs to quickly run and gun, I mean not really run and gun, but like throw ATGMs at your opponent and force them to smoke up, and then you can drive back to safety. To give you some other like I guess important ideas, I always run the Jaegers because they're just another RRC. They're really good. They have 2 extra Carl Gustav, rockets, which do a lot of damage. They're the better AT that the US has access to. And then for the infantry tab, I think this is also the main difference, but the part I should focus on. But let's go through some other units. For example, the Type X. This is the Type X is an unmanned vehicle, but it does have spikes, you know, too, just like any other like vehicle, like IMV, like the Vilka, like the CV90 that's upgraded, the Mark IV. But look at this. It's a tracked vehicle with really fast on-road speed, and even off-road, even in forest, it's as fast as a T-15. And this is one of the first vehicles that the US has access to that can quickly, like, for example, you can just hide at the edge of a forest, you fire your spikes, and then you retreat back to your nearest supply point to resupply your spikes, because all the vehicles here in the Baltic Battalion, they only have access to 2 spikes if they are in like a double magazine, you know, like the Spartan spike has 3, but you only get to shoot 1 at a time. All the other ones have magazines of 2, and they shoot 1 after the other. The big thing here is that your opponent will never auto smoke by themselves. They have to manually smoke if they don't want to get, you know, poked or possibly destroyed. So they also fly a bit faster than the Javelin, so that's why they're so expensive and also so limited. So that's the idea of the Type X here I'm using. For a cheap price of 80 points, they can defend forest or tree lines fairly well. So I think, yeah, you should definitely try these out. And then for the air tab, honestly, this is completely up to you. I have like a Strike Eagle with clusters for in case like a T15, T14 is like just hiding in that angle that I just can't deal with them. The Sex Eagle has 3 Jasms and 4 Harms. Obviously not the most destructive build, but also I can pretty much guarantee that my 3 Jasms get through with the help of my 4 Harms. 2 air-to-air interceptors, the Eagle as well, and that's about it for this deck, because I don't have access to the Marines at all. But let's talk about the infantry, shall we? The biggest, I'd say one of the weakness that Airborne has always had was that it lacked a bit of meat grinding. You know, it didn't have any CQC infantry itself, and that's why it always needed to be paired with another specialization that had CQC infantry. And the saving grace of the Baltic Battalion is that it actually has 2. It has 2 or possibly 3, but I run the ears. Units that can be ran in CQC configurations. So you have the Kaitsalit. This one has basically an engineer launcher. Even though it doesn't have smoke, it's extremely cheap, so it's really nice. You can run 2 of these inside of the, one of these XA-180s, or like the classic M113s. That also works. You also have a, how do you pronounce this? Salyukai or something. And then they have 4 smokes. They're basically an SSO squad in disguise. We have pretty much the same thing, really. And that is basically going to help Airborne be capable of dealing with threats, infantry threats in close range. Yeah, so the next 2 units that I think people will find either a lot of flexibility, like this is up to you, okay? You might see this and ask, like, Corn, why are your Airborne not NGWS? And you know, it's fine. It's a valid question because, okay, here's the thing. These 2 infantry squads, the Yalaveyagu and the Airborne, they both have configurations that can help them reach 600 meters or more of like engaging our opponent. For example, like the Airborne, I mean, this is a classic, right? 600 meters of everything. The Maws are fantastic, but the Yalaveyagu, these guys, if you look at their AT, even though this is a ATGM, you know, your opponent can technically smoke up and just basically dodge it. It also takes more time to aim, but they also do have a better like damage profile, more range, and also they're fire and forget. So you can also, and since you can also fire them on the move, I really don't see why you shouldn't run this, because you know you can keep running and you can shoot them at your opponent's IVs, and they do also 3-shot. So yes, your opponent can smoke himself up and basically be immune to these spikes. That is true. But I think that if you are informed, or like if you figured out what the other option is, like this one, the Mechanizatia, I forgot how to pronounce this, Kayanyeki or something. They are 70 points. They have 6 84s, which is 1 more than the Airborne one, but they only have 6 armor. So if you are in a scenario where you happen to need to meat grind, the Airborne are always a better option. So yeah, like that is why me personally, like, you could run this, right? You could run the mechanized infantry along with Airborne and GSW, or you could do it the other way around. So this is perfectly up to you. I just like this more, a little bit more. And yeah, like, I think that's enough explanations. You have the man pads. These guys are basically the same as the Stingers, but they do 1 less damage. But honestly, if you're against Russia, you still need 3 direct hits for the Groms to actually kill a Russian helicopter. Same with the Stingers, so I don't really see a lot of difference here besides armor and the capabilities. I mean, airdrop capabilities. So yeah, if you like the Stinger team more, then go for it. And then there's also the Milan, which is a cheap ATGM team. On paper, they're inferior to the Toes because they have less range and everything, but if you look at the stats, and I mean, not the max speed is there, but you still shoot 2 Milans at one time, so it's definitely a very suppressive tool at such a cheap price. And alas, for the IVs, I think I'll talk about the IVs just this time, because like in the future decks, they're basically going to be the same, play the same roles. have the same, I mean, like be paired with similar infantry, that kind of stuff. So quickly, the XA-180, I'll be using kite salute with them for the most part, or the other configuration later. The ISB transports 9-man infantry fast. The CV-90 at Mark IV does help a lot when you have to engage enemy IFVs, even tanks as well, because of this. The frontal kinetic armor is absolutely a menace. Even the top armor can basically save it from a TOS barrage and also protect the infantry inside. I'm currently making a video on the CV-90, so stay tuned. All right, stay tuned. And then even the standard CV-90 has a really decent gun that can take apart enemy infantry. I mean, just demolish them along with the IV, provided they're ambushing them, not the ones getting shot at by ATGMs, because it still dies. Both of these die to tank shots, like 2 heat rounds. That's it. Same with the Vilkas, but the Vilkas, they're a bit faster. They have APS as well. They're a bit cheaper, and I think for like on-road stuff, the Vilkas are fantastic. For off-roads, like Edge of Forest, that kind of stuff, use the CV-90 or the Type X that we mentioned earlier. And since you do get both the Thunderbolt, which does add a lot of DPS, like AT, that kind of stuff, it brings it to the board. It's obviously a must bring on in this deck. And for the Leopard, it's kind of up to you. I think against Russia, it's okay to just bring up armor, but if you're against like US, then definitely bring Trophy. Trophy is nice. If you need to cut the cost of anything, just drop the Type X's, I suppose. Same with the Thunderbolt. This gives you the reason why I take reactive armor is because you can have you survive an extra shot against enemy tanks, and also like a bit of extra protection against 30mm cannons that the BTRs kind of shred the Thunderbolt in the first place. But anyways, like this is whether you take Trophy or armor on your tanks is up to you. I'm not going to elaborate too much on the helicopter tab. This is also completely up to the Airborne specialization. So yeah, that's it for the first deck. I think this deck is it has a lot of potential. But the way, like, there's not really a lot of like room for negotiation. Like the playstyle is pretty much similar as let's say Marine Airborne, but you do have much better CV like IVs. Now the second deck is going to be Baltic Battalion and Armored Brigade. This one, okay, well, if you look at the vehicle tab, it's just flooded with the vehicles. So to give you a quick rundown, the reason why I take the Leopard with APS is because if an ATGM is shooting at you, the fact that you can block the ATGM with APS and the high optics, along with like a price of only 310, I mean, if you look at the 73, it's 350, so there's a really big price difference here for the same optics and for the heat round as well. So the Leopard is the much better, like the much superior tank, since it's cheaper, more vision, access to all different kinds of rounds, and also really thick front armor. Look at that, 850, 1400. This is the type of tank that you really want to just sit in the back, like the Tiger in World War II, and then just engage, because it just has that good of armor to protect it while also being able to dish out massive amounts of damage. And staying unpacked is also a really important part of these manually loaded tanks. So I think if you can manage to just keep this tank at a further away distance, only push it in if you need to go for a kill, then this is the tank. This is the most ideal and cheapest option that you have. There's also, but then the other tanks are also good. Like the reason why I think the US tanks are so important is because they have 4 machine guns if you give them armor, and this is what they're just so good at dealing with infantry even without the HE shell. So I have a couple of these tanks. The Assault Breacher just for blasting an infantry blob, Type X, same role, bit of cheap ATGMs, and this really fast Gearwagen with whatever missile you decide to bring. That's up to you. But ultimately they're just fast trucks that throw ATGMs at your opponent. Meanwhile, the support tab here is just really impressive. You have access to like MLRS, you have access to Paladins, along with we actually haven't mentioned the Co or the Panzerhaubitze, but To give you a quick summary, like the Co is actually quite similar to the Paladin, except for the same price you can basically get an Iron Thunder. So like this is kind of up to you, you know, like whatever artillery piece you end up bringing. And then there's also like the reason why I take the Paladin is because they're cheap. Oh, yeah, is because they're cheap and basically they have this similar range. And then last but not least, I think okay, we have to go through this then. I'll leave this here, and then because like you're probably gonna watch the entire video. So, but the NASMs, compared to the, I should have mentioned this in the last deck, but if you compare this thing to the Slam Ram, right here, Slam Ram, the AMRAM, and the NASMs, where is it? Here. Okay, so the AMRAM and the AIM-9 compared to each other, yes, it does deal less damage, yes, it does have less range, yes, it does a lot of things worse than the Slam Ram. But since this is mainly used as an anti-helicopter, or even so, like if it's against the plane, it still deals a decent amount of damage. It two taps planes. But the thing here is that even with the 15 damage on the AMRAM, it is not enough to one-shot a Russian helicopter. Especially those that are like K-52s, those with 30 armor. You can't one-shot them anyway, so I think that having a faster resupply time is still important. And since the blast radius is the same, you're probably going to two-tap Russian, like the tankier helicopters with the NASMs, and same goes for, I mean, it's going to be the same results basically. And since most US helicopters, if you happen to be in a mirror, most US helicopters have less than 12 HP, so you will always be able to one-tap the US helicopters with both the NASMs and the Slam Ram. I mean, with both the AIM-9 and the AMRAM. So that's why I think running this configuration, you also get 6 missiles anyways compared to the 4. That's why I think the NASMs is a pretty nice choice over, I mean, running the AIM-9 is a choice that is more like economy friendly, and also for the same performance. And then just a quick warner to help you smoke, because this deck actually relies on, or like my playstyle, generally relies on having infantry, like mech engineers, mech riflemen, or these boys, we'll talk about them later, sitting inside the AMPV. The AMPV is the vehicle, the go-to vehicle when you need to push your opponent. Because whatever you put inside this thing, when they jump out, they're going to wreck your opponent. Because you can always look at whatever your opponent has on the field, think to yourself, there are more infantry in this place. I should bring more engineers there. Okay, that makes sense. But, or, this guy has a couple more tanks here, maybe a Terminator. Maybe I should bring some AT. Like, you are the one with the initiative. So, and the AMPV is your key to blasting your opponent. To just drive up into his face, unload the infantry, and that's basically that's the end of your opponent's units. You can also have the option to bring Jaegerists inside the AMPV. That's why I have 4 of these guys in total. Just run these guys on the field at all times, because you really have so much squads that are 6-manned. And then also the S-Soft, that is really good, basically the same as the engineers, basically play a similar role. If you want, and I think it's reasonable, you can also take the Zalukai. That also makes sense. That's totally up to you. The unique pick here, I'd say, is the Semisards or something. And that is because this deck in particular, like, you already have 2 CQC units. Yes, you could have a bit more of these guys, but on the other hand, this deck also lacks AT in some scenarios. I'm not saying that the tanks aren't going to deal with your opponent, but also I guess this is up to you at the end of the day. But if you happen to need a bit extra AT, like you don't think that the Jaegerists is enough, then the Zemissards can offer you a bit of cheap and extra anti-tank capabilities. If not, then just let them sit back next to your like mech riflemen or like your Yelevayagu. These guys will shoot engineer warheads at your opponent, which, if you look at the stats here, they're basically the same. So yeah, like, they're equally threatening as a random like engineer team for just 35 points. So yeah, that's ultimately up to you. I think it's definitely worth a try. And then you still have, on top of all that, you still have, like, on top of all the IVs here, you still have the CFV, which it's stealthy, it fries enemy tanks and IVs alike. So this is also like a really good vehicle. And then the best of everything is that for this deck, along with the Baltic Stryker deck that we're going to be talking about later, is that both of these decks, despite being very focused around artillery, they don't have access to snipers, which the Baltic Battalion does. So that's very nice. I also mentioned this in the recent video that N7 Shark posted. We had a collaboration, so you probably got this video on your recommendation if you watched my videos or his videos already. Yeah, absolutely fantastic chap. I learned a lot from him, and I thank him a lot for the opportunity for the collaboration. But that's about it for the second deck, the armored deck. And then the third one is going to be for the Marines. And I think this one will talk a bit more about the infantry inside, because, oh well, if you look at everything, you have F-35s, which is nice. And like, this is basically the last deck, but you just have different helicopters, a different air tab. I'm not going to go through these guys much. But the main difference I think here is that you still have access to really fast logistics. You have the McClick. You could also run the Catv if you liked, and also the Co, since this is your only option now. This is also a pretty decent artillery piece, shoots fast, gets the job done. You have all three types of munitions, and then even so, like compared to the last deck, Baltic Armored, you still have two different types of tanks, or three actually, which includes the FEP. I just think that like the Leopard still should probably have the same role when you have the HCs, basically drive up to your opponent's face with the 4 machine guns and start blasting infantry with it, provided it doesn't get, engined and just instantly die afterwards. The M60 is a counter to Bookers. If you know that this thing basically 3-shots Bookers now, it always did. Just a cheap counter to it. You still have some kind, like, it's still very good at potent at dealing with enemy infantry. And then for the infantry tab, this is probably the most interesting one. We'll talk about the combat recon as well. Since you have Fortcon and Jaegers, I personally prefer to run the Fortcon as like the engineer team, like an engineer team that 6-man, not that much, but it also doesn't take a lot of space inside of infantry transports. In the meantime, you also have Marine Raiders CQC. You could, on paper, upgrade these guys to standoff, and then for the Semisards, you just bring the Kaiserlitz. So, like, basically, whatever the Marine Raiders bring, you just take the opposite over here on the Reservists, since I'm not saying that you should run them together, but since the Marine Raiders has a niche where its standoff version has 600 meters of range, but you can still do this with the Jaeger, so it's not a necessity. And on the other hand, the CQC capabilities of them are absolutely, like, just threatening. And I think that if you run the CQC, these guys only have 300 meters range. Then on the other hand, you can use the S-Soft instead of the Zaidukai. Like, you have so many options here. It's just so many different options here. It's crazy. So like, you can the S-Soft themselves, I haven't talked about them yet actually, but they can actually destroy some infantry transports by themselves without the help of anything else. So I think this squad is like basically like the Cherney of US, except that you have more dudes and you have a bit more DPS, kind of, and they still have 10 armor, so they're pretty nice overall. You also have the classic small and the Marines. Something else to keep in mind is that you can in fact put the smalls inside the limited capacity of the CV90s, which only have 8 dudes. Even though, like, on paper, the smalls inside the CV90s aren't really gonna have aren't gonna have a lot of impact on your match, because the CV90 usually just chills at range. And if you really want to shove a 9 or an 8-man squad inside the thing, then go for the cat teams, sure, why not? But ultimately, the spikes are also a pretty nice option for you to take. This long-range terminal guidance also shoots pretty fast, and yeah, this is also a very nice option for you to have. So for me, I think the Baltic Marines is actually on one of the better decks out there, and it's probably not going to bring anything new, but it has so much flexibility, and it is basically a kind of like the mirror, or like the other like if let's say Stryker Marines had a twin brother, that would be the Baltic Marines, because a lot of things are like similar, and you just share a lot of things alike, and it's both are very good decks for like the center of the map, even for the flanks. Let's go through the fourth deck, and I think people actually adore this one because, oh, look at that, 8RC. I made a video about this recently, where you can have both standoff RC and the Jaegerists to basically piss off your opponent. This is going to be absolutely cancelled when this hits live, by the way. But there are counters. But I guess if you have these these 8 squads as your front line, maybe you don't really need anything else in the infantry tab here, but you can still use infantry from here. I think there are too many options for you to just try to blend in here. So since you already have like 2 different really strong and capable combat recon squads here, I think we'll focus less on the infantry tab and talk more about the IMVs, because I think if you can squeeze a couple, like, let's say, how many are there here? Like 7, 8, maybe 8 infantry IMVs, then it would be pretty nice for you to, like, let's say your Ranger RCs take damage, they need to resupply, since they only have 4 rockets, then just take them back and then resupply them with an IMV. And I think it would be reasonable if you don't even take the Mark IV at all, if you happen to be at force, because I think the Vilkas can do the job at skirmishing, like throwing ATGMs at your opponents just fine. You're kind of just here for the gun. The gun here in particular, just to deal with your opponent's, like, let's say, infantry that you cannot reach yet. For example, your Delta forces are trying to crawl across the road, and they're getting suppressed by some random, like, 600 meters range of infantry, then just have the CV90 start shooting them. You even have a mortar. You can bring mortars. You have double Co's. I'm not even sure if I pronounced this right, but this is also the first deck where you, like, the only deck out there that you have no access to any other support tab. So this, I think this is pretty solid. The only problem with where the Unimog doesn't really have a lot of, like, transport capacity, but that's fine. Compared to SF Armored, this deck is more, how would you say it? This deck is more forgiving when it comes to logistics, a faster, like, supply tab. For example, like, these guys also go, like, pretty fast. Same with your Shorad. Oh, this track is a banger. You have a mortar, and the Co's are also pretty fantastic, so they don't, like, you're not really losing out to anything. The only thing you don't have is the MLRS, but that's fine. And then for the helicopter tab, you have some extra points you can bring. Also, same for my air tab. You can, as you can see here, I can bring 2 Raptors and 2 F-35s, which you couldn't do so with like armored SF. So that's also one of the things that you get a bit more freedom. And ultimately, I think the possibilities of you being able to fast deploy and then hold the line until your IVs, like the Vilkas or the CV90s, to quickly extract the infantry and then roll them back to, like, your lines and then, like, attack again, is actually a pretty reasonable way to play the game. You still have access to, like, tanks, even though you do have limited amounts of, like, availability, but that's fine, like, just try to play around these tanks. Like, if you run into your opponent's tanks, just roll these guys in, but please don't blob them together, because that's what happened to me and it absolutely sucked. So yeah, this is the Baltic SF deck is probably, I don't think it's gonna be game breaking, but it's definitely strong, because if your opponent just happens to know, like, oh, you're stacking 2 or 3, maybe 4 RC on top of each other, they're just gonna bomb it, because it's just I mean, if you blob your infantry together, you deserve to get bombed, basically. So that's also one of the things that, even though this deck is on paper good, they also cannot deal with, like, let's say the engineer teams. So, like, they will absolutely lose to them for the most part. So I think that, yeah, like, this deck is strong. Probably the strongest deck out there people consider, but it still has its weaknesses. Like, actually, what are the weaknesses? Okay, well, maybe not that big, but you can get countered, you know, if your opponent knows what they're doing and if you don't know what you're doing. Oh, that's completely copium. What if this deck actually does break balance? Oh no, Russia. But okay, one last thing, I guess. I guess this does kind of as a weakness, and that is that you kind of cannot push hard into force without using, like, if you only use infantry, sure, but if you happen to, like, if your opponent happens to just be constantly tossing you and you don't have any vehicles to keep up, like for example the Leopard doesn't have side armor. If you do bring side armor, it's not going to live for an extra, like, for 2 extra AT4s anyway, so it's just going to blow up. The side armor, like the heat armor on both the CV90 and the Vilkas, are really limiting. So when I played this deck, me personally, I struggled in forests and in urban fights, because the only thing you could rely on at that point is your really strong infantry, and not the IVs themselves. They kind of just offer fire support, and that's fine, but you kind of need to get used to it. You cannot just like armored SF, you cannot just roll your AMPVs in and expect to win. You kind of still need to make sure that, oh, I don't lose my IV on the way in and still come out, and even if I kill the infantry, I might still have, like, go a negative trade. For example, like the Morskaya can just kill the TV90 in like the Mark IV in like 3 shots, and that thing costs 160 points. And even if I kill the Morskaya, it's going to be a negative trade for me. So you have to be careful where your units, especially your vehicles, are going. Infantry, fine, but your vehicles, you really need to keep them safe. So that's my review for the SF deck. And last but not least, we're down at the Baltic Battalion Stryker deck. My voice is almost gone, but as you know, I am a Stryker ND. I love Strykers. And definitely not because I've used Bookers, but once upon a time I did. As you can see here, the Stryker RV is going to be like basically a parallel unit to the Bradley CFV, except they're going to be mostly running on the field just scouting stuff, occasionally dropping snipers and scouts out just so that I can maintain a bit of extra vision on the field. And then for the infantry tab, I think I am relying a bit more on Vilkas rather than Dragoons. You can, if you look at the heat armor, then yeah, obviously the Dragoon can take an extra like 84 than the Vilkas, but I think ultimately, like, if you run like a convoy of Dragoons along with Vilkas, then you want the Dragoons be in the front and then have them load combat engineers, and then the units in the back, it can be up to you. You can run like troopers or some other stuff, Yeleve Yagul, that's totally up to you. But just make sure that the guys in the front are always the Dragoons and they always have CQC infantry. So that's how the convoy should work, even though the Vilkas run faster. Just don't drive in, so just don't be too hasty and drive the Vilkas in. Make sure that the Dragoons always go in first. This tab is also fantastic for like center flanks. You know, you got the HIMARS, you got the Co. Both are like probably the best, or not the best, but like a really good MLRS and artillery piece. You also have the mortar, Stryker Shurad, and Pack 3 MSE. Like, I think like this deck is just even though you do lack helicopters, like I even brought hydropods on these things. Yeah, they're not gonna be able to deal with enemy, like let's say tanks, but still good enough to occasionally cheese my opponent. And I think that's about it for this deck, besides you know, some planes for some quick CAS. And I think, if I not mention anything, okay, well, maybe the shadows. The shadows are just here to just spot your spawn in case someone puts like a sniper team in your base. Now, all right, well, there are gonna be some hot takes here because I haven't played that much in like my Elo bracket against like people from top 50, top 20, top 10. So, but we're going for it. Okay, so I think let's start with the easy ones. All right, I think the SF Baltics is probably gonna be around definitely A tier. Like even on flanks, even on like they're kind of like a relative to the Stryker SF, but probably a bit stronger when it comes to like dealing with armor. But but weaker when you kind of need to get to somewhere fast, and also spam bookers kind of. Obviously, you also don't have the Stryker Shroud. You don't have some units like the HIMARS that you can help your allies deal with your opponent's infantry, or like stuff that are just blobbed up in a forest. You only have the two bodies, so honestly, if I could, I would actually just let everything just move them down in a tier, because I really think that MLRS in the current state of the match is really oppressive, and if you don't have MLRS, it does kind of suck. The Marine one, I think. Actually, can I change my previous tier list? I think I'm trolling at this point, but I think the Marines Baltic is also they should all be somewhere around B. I don't think Marine Baltic should be around, like, definitely, dude, I actually have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm just gonna throw them all in here. How about that? I'm absolutely cooked, guys. I have no idea where to put them. Please help me. And I said I knew what I was talking about previously, but okay, how about this? We move these guys down here. Baltic armored. Okay, so these guys, I think Baltic armor, like whatever Baltic pairs, whenever this guy pairs with the Stryker or armored, they'll automatically be better than Stryker armored, because they have snipers of their own. They have similar traits. The IVs are like still phenomenal. And then you still have like the air tab situation. Like, it's probably not that important if you're just constantly trying to blast your opponent in the center of the map. Just don't feed planes at that point. So maybe this tier list isn't really an accurate reflection of what's going on. But I think these three, if I compare them together, then these two are better than the good old Stryker armored. So if you like this deck, try these two out. These are pretty nice options there. Baltic Marines is probably... I said that they're relative to Stryker Marines, but the part that they miss out on is probably like you'll miss out on the bookers, but you still get the CV90. You'll miss out on a couple things like the MLRS. So I think in meat grinding like flanks, it would be decent. You still get the McClick. You get really good two-body, but I don't think it's really that comparable to Stryker Marine. So, alright, I guess I'll give it some mercy. I'll put it in B, but and then in the meantime, I'll bring this thing up. I'm gonna bring armored Marines up, because, dude, this thing is actually kind of good. This thing is actually kind of good. Oh, what do I do now? Move these guys down. And then... Airborne Baltic. Not that I necessarily think that they are worse than the Marines, but I guess I can find myself an excuse and say none of these two, like, the reason why I put these two decks here is because they have F-35s, and you can just spam them. And this one you can only play a bit safer by using cruise missiles and stuff. But I think the infantry wise, they also are a bit weaker than the other two options here. So, but regardless, they are still, I think that, like with the Apaches and Guardians to help you out, it's still a decent deck. So I think this would be the case for this. I mean, this is where I would put it, probably. Maybe somewhere behind Stryker, I'm not sure, but still decent, you know. And then, but is this better? Is this better than this? No, I think IVs are more important. Okay, so let's see. Armored Airborne. Actually, yeah, is Armored Airborne better than... No, the combat recon is just non-existent. We move him back here, poor guy. Should we move them all the way down here? I guess that's fair, really. Okay, sounds good. I mean, looks good, maybe? Anyways, guys, if you have an opinion out there that you want to let me know, please go ahead, because this tier list is definitely not, definitely not a perfect one. But I hope you enjoyed watching this video until the very end. And if you guys don't, if you guys out there, if there's anyone out there who doesn't have the game, then doesn't have the game yet, I think if if you will end up if you have the free time, like more than 100 hours that you can put into the game, then it's definitely worth your money for 50% off. But if not, probably wait a couple more months for like the bigger balance patch along with the first anniversary of the game. We'll probably have better discount prices by then. And yeah, like guys, I'll definitely keep you updated on the PTE news. We expect it to come out sometime in April, hopefully not like at the end of April again, like we had with the DLC, but yeah, at least the DLC is out for now, so everyone rejoice. And that should be it for the end of this video. I thank you all, along with the channel supporters, Nova, Kiko, and KP, along with the boys from BE Armory. I'm kind of getting used to the script now, but guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one, and bye-bye.